Before there was Pirate Bay, before there was Napster, before there was even the internet, there were BBSs. Bulletin board systems, the place where early computer enthusiasts can dial in, share software, tips and tricks in the early days of computers. If you grew up in the Apple II, Commodore 64, and TRS-80 computer era, better known as the 70s, then you know what I'm talking about. If you don't, then here's a quick primer, or just ask your parents. Back in the day, computers would use modems to convert digital tones to sound tones and transmit those tones to other computers over the phone. Why did people use the phone? Because that's how people communicated back in the past, over physical phone lines attached to people's homes. On the other side, we would do a reverse convert and get the data back. Sounds antiquated by today's standards, and it was horribly slow. But the files were tiny back then, and the transfers didn't take that long. If you had a group of friends or a computer club, you can meet together and swap disks, a sort of disk copying party. But then people of a certain age went to college and were introduced to the internet. For me, that was the late 80s. Piracy soon learned to migrate to this network of interconnected computers. I still have fond memories of ftp.simtel.net, downloading free and shareware games and applications. As I mentioned, piracy moved to the internet, but how did it get there originally? Piracy moved slowly into Usenet. Usenet, per Wikipedia, quote, is a worldwide distributed discussion system available on computers. Think of it as the early version of Reddit or other internet forums. Usenet was completely text-based. Copies were sent between computers. It was sent over the news transfer protocol. Your ISP at the time would host an email server and a messaging news server, and you had access to both these systems. Via Usenet, very intelligent people figured out how to convert binary digital data and encode it into this only text-based system. Protocols like UU encode, XX encode, and Y-Inc, or Y-encode, were developed and people could start sharing files. But Usenet used to have a message size limit of 60,000 characters, and larger hard limits exist today. So this worked great for small files, if you were lucky enough to get all the pieces you needed. But as the binaries got larger and the number of messages you needed to find increased, this became a lot more difficult to do. Okay, so this is when NZB was born. NZB is an XML-based file format for retrieving posts from Usenet servers. Simply put, it was an index file for all the pieces you needed for whatever download you requested. This was an easy method of indexing and was conceived by the developers of Newsbin, which was shut down in 2012. Now we get to the good part. You knew there had to be one. MP3s, or what we call officially MPEG-1 Audio Layer 3 or MPEG-2 Audio Layer 3 audio coding format. Widespread adoption of MP3 led directly to services like mp3.com and our favorite website at the time, Napster. Napster's servers provided indexing services for its users. This made finding the song you wanted easy and its ultimate downfall. The legal challenges against Napster led to the development of decentralized methods of P2P file sharing, BitTorrent being the most popular file sharing protocol. You knew BitTorrents eventually had to show up. And this began the golden age of MP3 torrent file sharing. At its peak, MP3 torrent accounted for up to 30% of all internet traffic. So where are we now? We went from a system of very manual intervention, manual processes to get the data that you wanted, to basically clicking on a site, grabbing a link, and downloading a file. No one really torrents anymore. Most of the piracy traffic on the internet is from pirate streaming services. But if you go back, you can find people who still use the older technology. Bulletin board systems, some still exist, but they're basically hobbies and novelty items, right? Usenet, pirates moved away from Usenet basically because ISPs no longer provided access to Usenet servers. It was very expensive to store all these messages. So people who still use Usenet, you have to subscribe to a service that gives you access to the Usenet feeds, and then you have to subscribe into some kind of like indexing service, NZB, to get your index files to download off of the Usenet sites. So there's a cost associated with still doing Usenet. Then there are torrents. Some people still torrent, but it's not as popular as it used to be. Hard drives are relatively cheap now, but there's no real motivation to store data, right? If the internet is basically your backup, you can download the file when you want and then delete it. Or you do what most people do now, and you just stream directly from a pirate streaming site, which is where most of the traffic is going. So it goes from hard to easier to basically now the easiest. You go to a site, you type what you want to see, and it tells you if it's available at that particular site at that particular time. So have the streaming wars really finished? Have the streaming wars have come to an end? The streaming wars have always existed, at least since the early days. But the industry basically shot itself in the foot. It had Netflix, just like Spotify has consolidated music, streaming music for the masses. You don't see every music label setting up their own streaming site for their particular talent, singer, right? They all go to Spotify, some of the other sites, and they get a cut of all the downloads, all the streams. And Netflix was that for the movie industry. But they all wanted to get a piece of the pie themselves. So, The Office left Netflix, and I remember when, Friends left Netflix, right? So now you have to chase these shows, and what are you going to do? You're going to have a calendar like some of my friends, and you subscribe for a service when the show is out. Like I knew people who subscribed to HBO, they would watch Game of Thrones, and when 6, 7, 8 weeks passed, they would cancel their HBO, and they would have in their calendar when the next Game of Thrones season would come out. So the streaming has fragmented the viewing experience, and the pirate streaming sites have done a very good job of actually making it an enjoyable experience for the end user. And you have to remember that it's your end user that you have to try and please. You try to nickel and dime them, they're just going to leave and find other options. So it's said that people are willing to pay a fair price for content. It's been proven, right? Netflix's heyday. Everybody was on it. It was like $8, $10 a month. You can watch whatever you want. You didn't have to torrent or pirate any data. So I want to tell you a personal story. So there was a movie I liked called Man from Earth. If you haven't seen it, you should watch it. It's very intellectually driven if you're into that kind of movie. So then I heard that they were making a sequel, Man from Earth 2. Interesting thing is they were publishing it on torrents and asking people to watch it and to donate and pay what they feel the value of the movie was worth. I loved it, and I paid $20. I actually got a reply back. Let me see if I can read it. It says, "Dear Marco, I just wanted to reach out personally to thank you for your unusually generous donation. While many people around the world have made donations, very few have given quite as much as you did. It's thanks to people like you that we can continue to make movies. We greatly appreciate your support. All the best." So here's a movie I liked that I would have paid good money to see in the movie theaters. I don't know how well it would have done in the movie theaters, but I certainly would have paid to see it. And I gave them what I would have paid to go to the movies with a friend of mine. $20. It's like $10 a ticket back in 2018 where I live. So here, if I'm capable of donating, I'm sure others are. I don't know how much other people around the world donated. If you're torrenting from around the world with people from different economic situations, $20 for me might not be a big deal back in 2018, a couple of beers and wings. But for someone in the second, third world, $20 could be like more than they make in a month. So it's kind of rough that the producers had to rely on a donation system that reached the entire planet. And that my $20 was seen as unusually large donation. It's told that people will pay for decent service. And we keep going back to Netflix when it was $8, $10 a month and you had access to everything. And then the streaming platforms all split off. And I knew right away that when HBO announced, Paramount announced, Hulu announced, and Disney Plus announced, that we were just going to go back to the whole cable nonsense that we had before, where you had to basically buy a $60, $80, $100 cable package to get the 2 or 3 channels you really wanted because you had to get all the other channels that no one else wanted to watch. So I think, and it's pretty universal out there, that for the piracy issue to go away in Hollywood, they're going to have to come up with a singular streaming source for all of the actors to stream on, and then do some kind of file sharing, do fee sharing based on views. Because going at it on your own is killing you. I'm in tech. I know what these hard drives cost. To have set up a data center with a couple of petabytes of data in order to put your entire collection in 4K is costing you an arm and a leg, plus the power. And then you have to have multiple sites for the rest of the planet. I mean, Netflix has already done that. They already have the infrastructure in place. And everyone else had to build one up to play catch up. I don't know. Streaming wars, it's not really over, but yeah. The streaming wars, what can I say? Is it really over? Is it still ongoing? Think of it this way. The major battles are over, right? Those are done. You're now moving into more insurrection, what's the word I'm looking for? Guerrilla warfare kind of tactics now, right? It's like any other war. You fight the main people, and then if you kind of win, there's always going to be an internal resistance group that you're always going to have to contend with. So, yeah, the streaming wars are definitely not over. It's just getting interesting.